Here we go. Let's start back into the pink lady slipper. Now that I have put in my drawing, I'm going to start with a little bit of burnt sienna and just get these areas in. I will wash out my lines as I go. There's a little debris on the paper. I'm not worried about it. I'm going to go ahead and darken. Oop. Sorry. Okay, when that happens, sometimes it's just best to let it dry. But here we go. Let me get what I need here. There's a little bit of hair there. It's from my brush or just something. I'm not going to worry about it because once this dries, I can get it and move it. Just brush it off. I'm adding a little bit of olive color, and that's mixing that is mixing permanent yellow light with a little bit of viridian, and it does go a little bit olive depending on the amount of yellow used. I'm going to go ahead and keep going with this green. And this is permanent yellow light with viridian. I'm aware of the fact that the light hits on top here. So I will be painting negative space, and I'm just going to go ahead and get that in so that I can start to see my edges. Notice that I'm just leaving the teeniest little razor thin line between this shape and this, because if I were to push this up, then I have an overlap and the value is wrong. Same all the way down there. And I'm going to leave that alone for the moment while I study it. And I'm just going to start to build this little area while I try to figure it out all at the same time. Same thing, working with the edges and not wanting to overlap edges at this time. Just leaving, really applying one color next to one color. There's a little bit of a white area here, so I'm going to do some negative painting behind it. I'm going to go back to the olive. There's the olive. And it just comes down. There. You can see I miscalculated a little bit, but I fixed it. Okay, we're going to keep going. Notice that I am starting light while I figure this out. I'm going to go ahead and put this in. I mixed it with a little yellow ochre just to give it a coral. That's the rose. And opera. Scrubbing that out a little bit. Really do like the opera, rose, and yellow, or burnt sienna. Yellow, rose, opera, and burnt sienna. So much so that I'm going to go ahead. It just has a little more life to it. And I'm holding the light on this side. Yeah, I think that's exciting. That color right there. It's a little more exciting than this color. And there's a little yellow right up here. And there's yellow over here. Bringing the yellow down. All right, until I get all that drawn in there, I'm going to leave it alone. Let's go up here to the top. I had yellow on my brush. I just kept it there. And now I'm going to add the burnt sienna. I want to just tell you that I think the masking does change the texture or the surface of the paper. I'm going to add a little green to that and let it just flow right down the paper and turn all of it as it goes. And I'll add a little more Viridian just to adjust it again. By the way, I'm using a number 4 brush. See what happened here? That's the overlap, but it's okay. It's gonna work. All right, a little of this pink and burnt umber. I want to leave a sliver of white right there. I'm going back for a little bit of burnt umber. So, not sure what happened here, but there are two little dots there. I'm not worried about them. This is just a little bit of purple. Okay, I'm going to fill that in. It's a little, I'll adjust this color a little bit later. All right, let's go ahead and use the opera and the rose to start putting in the lady sliver. You can see the difference between the opera rose and the burnt umber and opera. You know, I've just learned a new color. I love that burnt umber and opera. It almost gives you a little bit of a coral. So starting to feel the texture, knowing that I'm going to have some color changes here. And a little bit of blue will just give it a little bit of purple. Just dropping it in. Same thing over here. Working the reverse. This is adhesive, I'm going to guess. And it's just marking up the paper, but I'm not worried about it. Worse things have happened. Adding a little bit of opera. There, just see that purple appearing? It's really pretty. Working the texture. And the momentum picks up. Yeah, moving toward the opera and putting in the bloom. I'm working light. I'm going to go back and get a little bit more of the opera. I'm going to add a little bit of the blue. By the way, I'm using Prussian, the blue. It's just more lively than the cobalt. And it brings you to a point. I'm leaving some light here. And just trying to see the blue in other areas because it's on my brush. And I'm seeing it over here. And now just preferring, there we go, to see it here instead of this purple. It's just not giving me any pizzazz. So just to see it blue, I think it's more exciting. Yeah, that's pretty. Okay, we've got a little opening there. It's a hard edge. And I may change the color now that I'm looking at it. It may have not gone on correctly as blue. When that happens, I am just not going to fret about it because you can change it later. Put back to just a dot of Prussian right there. And back to adding a little green. Okay, so we've started. And all the way down. So I'm a little more connected to this one right now. Just kind of dotting around some of those areas. Notice the sliver of white. Looking at my edges. Going for a little yellow ochre right here. And I'll go ahead and drop it in up here. A little brighter in here. So I'm going to leave that white. And a little yellow ochre right in there. There we go. I'm going to dot that with a little orange. Actually, I'm going to add pink to get the coral. There. And pinken that up, or coral that up, I should say. I'm adding the pink over top of the burnt sienna, and I want it light on the tip. So we'll work that again. Okay, a little more opera and the rose down into the bloom while it's wet. Let's put it in there. There we go. We're going to leave that alone for a moment. I can put a little in here. And let's just end it right there. All right, with the bigger brush, I'm going to come over here and start brushing in this bloom. There we go. You know, I just think you have to build this slowly and at your own pace. And while it's wet, you want to add the color while it's damp. A little more spontaneous with this one. Okay, so what we have here there. Okay. Building texture and closing in the gap where the frisket was, going around the bloom. We're going to just leave that alone until it dries. Maybe add a little burnt sienna to it. Soon you won't see that line. And we can add a little here. Okay, Let's add some up here. Okay, well that's a start. Let's put some in here. And we're gonna leave this nice and fresh for the green. Let's put that in. And then it can be drying. A little permanent yellow light and a little bit of vermilion to turn it toward a beautiful grass green. We're just gonna put that in there. All right, let's just add a little more viridian to it. And we're gonna continue to work with the color. I'll go ahead and put all these greens in too, but I need to draw in what's there. But can you see how this is becoming part of our environment? And I'm just continuing to add layer upon layer over these neutrals. I have not changed my recipe, but you're going to start to see this as brown. And it should harmonize. That's my hope. Okay, let's call it quits on this one. We got started on both of the blooms and we filled in a lot of where this border was. We're going to leave some sparkle. Let's fill this in. And we're going to add a little of the rose to it just to neutralize it. Okay. Okay. So we are now starting to connect the lady slipper to the environment.